If it's anything that the MEAC SWAC Challenge taught us, it's that North Carolina Central is the epitome of next man up, and they do it pretty well. Oh yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics. Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, and for us, it's already here. Visit the FanDuel app and start planning your future bets now. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look into our Monday mailbox. We have 2 comments, but we're only going to do 1 segment today. Probably be kind of regular as we get into football season, have more to talk about from our game of the week. And this time, it was North Carolina Central versus Southern. We'll start off with the winners, wrap up with the losers. In segment 2, Jalen Woods has to be the starter for Southern next week. I'm not saying long term, but next week for sure. But let's kick this whole thing off with North Carolina Central, because how do they keep doing it? I mean, I knew that they had talent. I knew that they had depth. I knew that Chris Mosley was going to come in and be a pretty quality running back. Did I know that Chris Mosley was going to do what he did on Saturday? No, I did not know that. I'll say this. This game went a little different than I thought it would. I expected North Carolina Central to win. I expected them to win comfortably. I thought that Southern would be better than they were. It looked as if these 2 teams were in completely different classes. And I'm not sure that that's not the case, just to be honest. I'm not sure that North Carolina Central is not in that tier with them. I don't want to name other people in that tier, right? Let me still get the season underneath me. I said that I was done with all of the projections, all of the speculation, but just know that North Carolina Central is more than likely in that S tier, in that top tier with only a few teams. Southern is not in that weight class, right? To me, this game showed it. But one of the things that it really showed me is that not only does North Carolina Central have depth, not only are they a great great recruiting school, they also are the epitome of next man up, because they keep losing big dogs. Like, they keep losing big time contributors to their team and continue to not miss a beat. And there's a talent in that. And I don't think that you can say that about every single program around the country. You definitely can't say it about every single program in the MEAC or every program in the SWAC. It does feel like a lot of times you are hitting the portal. It feels like a lot of times that you are taking almost like a speed bump, right? Like, okay, well, because think about it. Most times when you lose a star player, at least I'm talking about our SWAC, HBCU, or our SWAC, MEAC, or out of conference HBCUs, most times when they lose a star player, it's not we already have one waiting. That to me is somewhere where North Carolina Central is special, because a lot of times they can go, for example, FAMU went from Jeremy Musa to Daniel Richardson, but it's not as if Daniel Richardson was sitting on the team already. They just knew how to go recruit. And there's a talent, there's an appreciation that should be given for that. Right now, I'm appreciating North Carolina Central for having these players already on the team. I had a very right take and a very wrong take about Chris Mosley. And I'll start off with where I was right. I knew he was a dog. I knew that he was a player who averaged 10 yards a carry in last year's season. I knew that he was a player who was a change of pace, but there is a big difference between being a change of pace back and being an every down back, right? So I wanted to see how would he perform when he stepped into a bigger role. So I was right about that. I didn't have a problem, and I felt good highlighting him as one of the players in our matchups to watch. But where I was very wrong was saying that he would not average 10 yards a pop. But you know what? I'm okay admitting where I was wrong, but let's go ahead and have a laugh at my expense and play the clip from last week where I was so definitive what Chris Mosley would and wouldn't do. We saw what Jamari Taylor was able to do when he stepped into the role, 1,100 yards. I don't know if I'm predicting that for Chris Mosley, but what I will tell you is on only 24 carries, he averaged 10 yards a carry. On only 24 carries, he was 10 yards a pop, and that is a high clip rate. But I'll be interested to see if Chris Mosley can have a pop again. He's not going to average 10 yards a carry, right? But he may average 5. He's not going to see 24 carries. He might see 124, 150. I'll be interested to see that. Shut up, Darrion. Shut up, Darrion. Like, I know it's just one game, but the truth of the matter is this. I don't expect him to average 10 yards a carry for the entirety of the season. Definitely not. I don't think anybody is doing that. But at the same time, I didn't expect him to do it in week 0. So let's have a laugh at my expense, right? It doesn't have to be so literal of, oh, well, he's not going to do it all year. This was an incredible display, and it was one that I did not see coming. 174 yards on 15 carries, better than 10 yards a pop. What's insane to me is that you lose Latrell Collier and you go get you lose Latrell Collier and you already have Jamari Taylor, but you put him into the starting lineup. Jamari Taylor in his first game against the SWAC team goes absolutely ballistic. He was our player of the game that day. Then you get Jamari Taylor, he transfers out, and you get Chris Mosley into a bigger role. And he comes in and he goes ballistic. And he, of course, is our player of the game, right? Chris Mosley is without a doubt our player of the game. 15 carries, 174 yards, multiple big-time plays, a near 50-yard touchdown rush. And that doesn't make all of his yardage. I think that's the important part. And we're going to talk about that with Southern. But the thing about Chris Mosley to me is he had explosive plays, but it's not as if he wasn't anything without him. It's not as if he was boom or bust. It's not as if he had these pop plays and then was just poor the rest of the day. We've seen that in multiple games. This is not about anybody in particular, but we've seen that multiple times where you have one long run. It's an 80-yard run, and now you look at it, he ends with 11 carries or 15 carries for 105 yards. And it's like, oh, so on those other 14 carries, you only had 25 yards. We really shut you down for the majority of the day. That cannot be said for Chris Mosley and the Southern defense. They had no answer. Southern had no answer. And one of the reasons that they looked outclassed is because they could not stop the run. That offensive line for North Carolina Central did set the tone. They did get everything going. And even when they didn't have big holes for Mosley to run through, I felt like Mosley did a good job setting the tone himself. The aggressiveness that he played with, and he was on go from the beginning. This was a guy who was on go from the very first run. He had a 20-yard run, or excuse me, a 21-yard run out the gate. And he gets up talking trash. I'm talking about talking down to the Southern opponent. And then there was another early carry, I think was either towards the end of the first quarter or maybe beginning of the second quarter, where he gets up and he's talking trash to another down opponent. This time the ref gets in and like, all right. And you don't see him do it again, which is, smart. You get the warning, don't do it. But the one that really got me was when, and I can't remember which run it was. I think it may have been a second one. But it was Chris Mosley and it was Herman Brister in the open field. And did the tackle get made? Yes. But did Herman Brister take the worst of that? 100%. 100%. You've seen Mosley running. And mind you, have to remember, this guy is not a huge player. So it's not as if you're talking about a 225-pound running back. You're talking about a guy who was sub 200. Chris Mosley is running in the open field. Herman Brister is coming down from his safety position. They make contact. Brister does get the tackle. But Brister also says, I need a sub. In the aggressiveness that was in that run, it told me everything I needed to see. This man was in a different mode. This dude was amped up from the beginning. So I thought that when you're looking at Chris Mosley taking over for Jamari Taylor, they're in good hands. They're in good hands. He is not just a change of pace back. He is a true down in, down out back. I thought he showed it here. I thought the offensive line was consistent. I thought offensive line got a lot of push, and I expect them to be able to do this on an every game basis. So it's going to be worrisome. It's going to be worrisome for a lot of people. This is what Trey Oliver had to say about Jamar. It's going to be about Chris Mosley. He said he's never had that many carries before. It was good to see him get 15 and show what he could do. He's been the best kept secret in our backfield. And it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue. We know about the speed. 21-yard run, 35-yard run, 49-yard run, 20-yard run. And that 49-yard run to me said a lot because at that moment, I'm not going to say there's not a bigger play in this game than the 49-yard run, but it's up there because when you look at what was going on, what was transpiring, it felt as if Southern was ready to try to steal some momentum. Now, in hindsight, do I think they would have done it? No, because I just don't think they would have been able to get consistent offense. But at that time, you just had Trey Holly pop a long run. They just scored their second touchdown, the second explosive play of the game for the Jaguars. So now what do? You hand the ball off, first play, boom, 49 yards to the touchdown, Chris Mosley. And to me, that was a great answer before halftime that let everybody know this is our game. I thought it was closer. I was going to come in here and talk about how the game was closer than the score reflected, and then they ended up opening up a big lead. And I thought that the score was very reflective of the difference between North Carolina Central versus Southern, and Chris Mosley was a big part of that. But let's not forget about Walker Harris, right? I think that at some point through this week, we'll probably talk about Walker Harris, probably on Thursday's episode. I think we'll talk about Walker Harris because I thought he had a quietly good game. But let's push forward. Because I now want to talk about Southern, who I think drastically needs to change their offensive approach if they're going to have success in 2024. That may feel like an overreaction, but I genuinely do not believe it is. And I'll explain why as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiet. And listen, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra. You probably heard of Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them before. But if you're looking for something that goes beyond the usual pill, it's time you meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, just 15 minutes. So you're ready to go for 36 hours. Be ready for when that moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, go switch to Rougiet. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website today for more safety information. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, and we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. So maybe you get a little extra boost. Don't just throw it in my comments. Go ahead and make sure you do it on the link as well. Maybe you get an Amazon card out of it. But I'm going to tell you this. Jalen Woods has to start for Southern in week 1. Jalen Woods has to be the Southern starter next time they see the field. And it's not because I just absolutely despised how Cam McCoy played. I did not like the offensive strategy when he was in the game. I did not like the biggest flaw of the game. I don't know if he's able to fix it. I don't know if they're able to fix it. And this is the thing. We saw 2 quarterbacks for Southern. We expected that. I expected to see 2 quarterbacks. I didn't expect it the way it happened. And I know many people are thinking, why did McCoy start? I don't actually have that big of a problem. We'll get into why that was the case. I don't have that big of a problem. I didn't think he was bad. I just thought that they were too reliant on the deep shot. That's my thing, is when it comes to Southern, they were too reliant on getting these big plays that they never got. Not through the air, at least. I know they had some big runs, but every deep shot they tried, they missed. I think they got 2 PIs on a deep shot. If I'm not mistaken, they got 2 pass interferences on deep plays, but for the most part, you didn't connect. Either you overshot it or the receiver just didn't catch it. I just didn't think that it was working enough to keep going to it. That does not mean that it's the offensive coordinator's fault, right? This could be a Cam McCoy wants to go deep thing. This could be Cam McCoy is looking for the big shot as opposed to calling up plays that are specifically designed for the big shot. Those are two different things. I won't know that because I don't know what they're calling. I'm not in the huddle. I'm not knowing what the reads are, right? But I do know that that has to change. Whether Cam McCoy is the starter, whether Jalen Woods is the starter, they have to reel in those big shots. You do, right? You have to be more timely when you do it. You have to be more accurate. You have to be more effective. But as long as you're missing them, they're not helpful to you. And I'm not taking 4 or 5 of them. I wouldn't be shocked to see, I know his one was tipped. Cam McCoy went 9 for 14 on the day. One was tipped. It wouldn't shock me to see that the other 4 were deep shots. I think I can remember at least 3. The problem is there were some pass interferences on them. So which ones were incompletions, which ones were PI, that gets a little tricky. But it wouldn't shock me if 4 of the 5 incompletions by Cam McCoy were deep passes. That's a problem to me. And the biggest thing is Southern showed no ability to methodically move down the field. Not only did they not show any ability to do it, I don't think they showed any optimism that they would find the ability to do it. Jalen Woods, however, when he came in, he did do that. There's a big reason you should not overreact to Jalen Woods entering the game and the effectiveness that he had, right? Because I think many people, this is me, I think many people will look at what Cam McCoy did and then look at what Jalen Woods did and said, how dare you not have Woods start? But Woods also entered at a very low risk time. He also didn't enter in the heat of battle. He also entered in a time when you could just bink, 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 and nickel and dime. I will give him credit because with the score being the score, he easily could have did the same thing that Cam McCoy did and try to take those deep shots, try to really get everything back, try to press, but he didn't. He took what the defense gave him. And to me, that is a feather in his cap. To me, that is something that you should applaud. But at the same time, it's not to say, look, Jalen Woods is this much better of a quarterback because he went 4 or 5 instead of 9 for 14. As far as passing completion goes or completion percentage goes, that's not bad on either one, to be honest. I'll take both. The thing is, when Cam McCoy was in the game, it felt like everything was boom or bust. The reason I'm starting Jalen Woods is not because, oh my God, Jalen Woods looked like so much better of a passer or anything like that. It's about the fact that Jalen Woods seemed committed and okay with taking the short passes. He seemed committed and okay with moving down the field methodically, something that Cam McCoy simply did not do in that game. We have to credit North Carolina Central for that. They do play a part. North Carolina Central does play a part in that, but at the same time, it felt like all these deep shots, they weren't effective. Every time they did them, I began to get frustrated. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you can't keep relying on this because it's not working. It just isn't working. Blame who you want to blame. I don't care. It's not working. You have to do something else. You have to go 3rd and 5. You got to do a 7-yard route. You can't be 3rd and 5 and you're trying to go 15, 20, 30 yards down the field. It's not how you're supposed to play. You're not getting enough consistent offense to try to go over the top. And I think that they were ready for that. That's the way I felt. And I think that Jalen Woods could be better for it. At least this week. Like, you have to see, you're going to play Valley in week 1. Should be an easier game, right? Like, you should have an easier game there. The thing is, you're going to go Valley and then you're going to Alabama State. I don't know if this works against Alabama State. We're going to have questions. They're going to be one of the teams that I highlight on tomorrow's episode where we talk about the 5 things that I'm looking for in the 2025 season. But as far as this Valley game, you got to try to figure it out. Even if Cam McCoy does play again, you got to find a way to be more methodical. You got to find a way to run the freaking football. You got to find a way to run the freaking football. Trey Holly is a talented player. I saw it. It looked different. Kudos to North Carolina Central because I do think they did a good job of containing him overall. But I also think that I saw the poor blocking. I saw the explosive play. I saw the fighting through contact. I saw things that told me this is the Trey Holly I thought of, but at the same time, the numbers are the numbers, and I must go with them, and they weren't great. But here's the thing. Why did Trey Holly have over half of his carries in the fourth quarter? Why did Trey Holly only have one carry in the third? Why did Trey Holly not touch the football in a running capacity? I can't remember if he caught a ball. But why did Trey Holly not get a rushing attempt before the second quarter? Why did he only have one in the third? Why did most of his runs come in the fourth when the game's already starting to expand? That, to me, is on the offensive coordinator. That, to me, and I understand that North Carolina Central had some long drives, but what are we doing? Trey Holly, not just because I thought this coming in, I watched it and he looked like the clear best running back you had. He just did. I understand the Jalen Woods situation because it was disciplinary, and I condone that. Like, I 100% understand where that comes from. Trey Holly, though, that was poor usage of your talent. That's just how I feel. As we push forward, I wonder how this is going to work. If he will comment on Game of the Week, it will do Monday Mailbox. I don't know, but I do know how we're doing Monday Mailbox today. And we're going to be focusing on a comment that really revolves around the replacing of talent at Tennessee State. We're going to talk about that as we continue and close out today's episode of Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And tomorrow is officially FanDuel Futures Day, August 26th. If you're listening to this live, it is tomorrow. It's in literally a couple of hours if you're listening to the 6:30 drop. In 5.5 hours, you can start your futures. Midnight to midnight. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and the preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot divisional winner, or you're ready to crown the Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Go there. Take a flyer on the MVP race. I think the Saints are a long shot divisional champion contender. You know what I'm saying? The division ain't that good. We'll see. But this is your moment to do it. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Future Days is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. As we continue rolling and wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go into our Monday mailbox, and I don't know how we're going to do this moving forward. I just thought about that because when you talk about games that already happened, I'll already be back with another game that's happened, right? Like, if you want to say things like, say you're commenting about North Carolina Central versus Southern, by the time that this plays, or as soon as I come back from Monday mailbox, it'll already be talked about, like, right? Like, it won't be a point to really get to it. So I don't know how we'll do this. We'll try. Keep leaving your comments, and I'll try to respond, but these are things, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work, but we'll see. So no guarantee we'll have Monday mailbox next week. We'll just have to see how the comments kind of play out. But anyway, Joan Sean 1, I believe that's how you would say it. Joan Sean 1. He said, I don't know. Anyway, TSU lost a similar number of starting players in comparison to their OVC opponents, Southeastern Missouri and UT Martin. I can't sit here and tell you that I watch a lot of Big South OVC that's not Tennessee State related. Can't say that I keep up with a lot of them, right? So I won't refute that. But what I will say is, and I'm not exactly sure where you're taking this. I'm not sure if you're saying that they shouldn't be treated this way. I don't know, but I'll say what the difference is. The difference to me is that Tennessee State lost their coach. Tennessee State lost Coach George, while these other schools still have their head coach. So if it's a question on why they're being treated differently, I think that's a big reason why. Though I like the Reggie Barlow hire, I do understand what comes with a coaching change. And with a coaching change comes a different level of expectations, typically lower. If you're good, like if you lost your coach because he resigned and he was a good coach to move on to a better job, then you're probably going to go down in expectations. I like Barlow. I like Harris. I like Williams. I like, oh no, they don't have Cruz anymore, but not Cruz. can't think of the older guy. Coach K. I think it started with a K. Not Coach K. That's basketball. But anyway, the point is, when it comes to Tennessee State, if you're wondering, well, this team lost this amount of players and this team lost this amount of players and Tennessee State lost this amount of players, it's all going to be related to the fact that they also lost their coach. And if there's a deciding factor, it's that. So not too much to really get to on that, but I did want to highlight that because I think that it's good context. It's really good context for why everything or why they're being looked at the way that they are. Then our good friend, Lawrence Q79. Ooh, I like this guy. Not gonna lie, I like this guy. But he said, quarterback battles everywhere. I thought quarterback play was terrible across HBCU football last season. I hope things change this season. I think it's at the point where if you ever get a really good quarterback, you're a contender. Most times. I thought that Daniel Richardson was a pretty good quarterback. FAMU wasn't that much of a contender. But I did like Daniel Richardson a lot. They just had a lot of things going on for them last season. But yeah, I do think that there's battles everywhere because not many people are excited or happy about their quarterback play. And then you have guys like UAPB who they lose Mekhi Higgins and they have to figure it out. So we'll see if quarterback play can step up specifically in the SWAC. That would be nice. That would be nice. I think that Eric Phoenix was really good. I think that Walker Harris was solid. I think that that's kind of where the really good quarterback play stops. But yeah, quarterback play has been the Achilles heel of HBCU football since I've been hosting this show. I'm not going to speak about it before, but since I've been hosting this show, it hasn't been great. You've had a couple of guys who you feel like had potential. You had a couple of guys who were really strong contenders. But for the most part, these last few years have been pretty weak for quarterback play. I hope that does turn around with guys like Quad Brown, guys like Jacobian Morgan, guys like Andrew Body, guys like Walker Harris, guys like Ryan Stubblefield, Izzy Carter. Right? Like I think that there are some teams that have excitement around their quarterback. I just hope that they deliver. And if we can get 2 in the MEAC, 3 in the MEAC, maybe about 4 to 6 in the SWAC, because it's not going to be that many contenders. It rarely is. But if you can get 4 to 6 in the SWAC, 2 to 3 in the MEAC, I think we're talking about a relatively okay season as far as quarterback play goes in HBCU football. But speaking of quarterback play, I was going to have this entire segment dedicated to FAMU until it was announced late on Sunday that, hey, FAMU has their starting quarterback, and his name is RJ Johnson. So let's talk about that on tomorrow's episode, as well as talking about the 5 things I'm looking forward to in the 2025 season. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.